and fearfully, something that happens to us. I would suggest to you in May of 2014 that if each of us were to receive the same assignment, we could find no greater example for such a treatise than Gudrun, for she has, through her grace, dignity, warrior fight, and eventual acceptance, been a superb teacher for all of us on the art of dying well. A number of years ago, a group of seminarians was polled as to their preferred manner of dying. To a person, they all stated that their wish was to die suddenly in their sleep. We would probably agree that that is the preferred way to go, and we even find ourselves, upon hearing that someone has died in that manner, saying, yes, that is the best way. Gudrun did not have that luxury. For 10 years, she lived with the unmitigated reality of watching death's steady, unrelenting approach. And in that time, she managed, with a deepening faith, to accommodate that reality and to live open to it as a gateway to a new life, trusting that she had nothing to fear. The grace with which she bore both pain and hope is an example over which we all marveled and from which we all learned. By embracing and talking about her own mortality, she helped us to embrace our own. But her dying well is only one of the many things she taught us, for that was, in the end, a reflection of her living well. She taught us to do that magnificently. She taught us to appreciate each day by holding steadfastly to the hope and the belief that her days would increase. She taught us to pay attention to the beauty of God's creation, of flowers, birds, and animals, because her childhood was spent in the destruction and devastation of war. When her home was bombed in Berlin, she, along with her parents and siblings, sought safety in Czechoslovakia, and later, in an effort to flee the advancing Russians, they sought asylum with German relatives. She taught us to value fine food and wine because memories of deprivation and malnutrition haunted her life. And when she and we were in the presence of these gifts, she cautioned us by example not to be wasteful of such bounty. She had a great love of textiles and interesting clothing design because she remembered the scarcity of suitable clothing after the war, a scarcity somewhat alleviated by her clever mother, who, upon finding a discarded Nazi flag, removed the swastika and repurposed the red wool into a warm but scratchy dress for Gudrun's small frame. She made us pay attention to books, art, music, and fine poetry, for these passions were ignited by intellectual parents, and she shared them with her husband Dan, an American, when they met in post-war Berlin in 1956. As did the prophet Isaiah in our opening hymn respond to God's question, "Whom shall I send?" So did Gudrun throughout her life answer, "Here I am, Lord. I will go, Lord." She spent a lifetime trying to ease the suffering of others, working in Africa with the U.S. Agency for International Development to ease the misery brought on by wars, famine, and drought. She was emboldened by the example of her parents who sought through the press and quiet protest to confront the risk and stand up to the Third Reich. With such a heritage, she was always engaged in issues concerning social justice, and she sought, through the political process, to lighten the burdens With such a heritage, she was always engaged in issues concerning social through the political process to lighten the burdens of those who suffered because of belief or station in life. I would suggest to you that this lifelong compassion was born in the little girl who preyed upon seeing emaciated, ghost-like creatures in striped clothing limping along a road after having escaped from Buchenwald concentration camp. Not knowing who or what they were, she prayed that relief and transport would soon arrive to comfort them. I always found it a great inspiration that when faced with man's inhumanity to man in coping with her own unending illnesses, she remained steadfast in her belief in a loving God who is greater than any situation. Gudrun is remembered for her kindness, her gentleness, and for the focused intention with which she lived her life. She loved reaching out to others, and her illness heightened that desire. We have all marveled at the fortitude with which she bore one devastating diagnosis after another, with the belief that tomorrow will be better and that God would see her through. A rigorous round of chemo on a Friday could not deter her from worshiping among us on a Sunday. Always creative and on the lookout for a worthwhile ministry project, in 2006, she combined her great instinct for compassion with her love of textiles when she founded the Prayer Shawl Ministry here at St. John's. At meetings, we would sit and knit or crochet while she read to us from some favorite anthology, or shared a concern from the news item of the day. As these prayer shawls are given out to comfort people who are dealing with loss, illness, or distress, she wanted them to be soft and attractive. And here we were the beneficiaries of her charming sense of humor, when, upon hearing a discussion among us one day about being economical in the purchase and use of yarn, she cautioned us, please remember, the recipients of our shawls are sad. They are not indigent. She made us appreciate family by always being interested in the doings of our own families and by staying in contact with her far-flung siblings, Helly in Canada and Albert in Italy. She and Dan celebrated the arrival of Johanna into their lives in 1969, and later she rejoiced in her grandchildren, Jane and Gal. Gudrun's funeral service today began with the words, I am resurrection and I am life. Whoever has faith in me shall have life, even though he die. Gudrun's earthly life has ended. She was a beautiful person, in whom the Spirit of God was fully alive. But that Spirit has been loved into new life, and she is now free, and her gentle presence resides with the communion of saints. We who are still on our earthly pilgrimage and who walk as yet by faith have had the blessing, gift, and honor to call her sister, mother, grandma, and friend. But she was much more. She was also a great teacher on the art of dying well, of loving well, of caring deeply, and most memorably, of living well. And her final gift to us is that of a sunlit absence. We know that she is gone, and we mourn her departure, but we share in the sunlit joy of shared memories and remarkable teachings, which are her legacy to us. In her final days, as we sang hymns and read prayers and poetry to her, this poem by Emily Dickinson seemed to linger in our minds as one which captures so perfectly the essence of Hudun. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could bash the little bird that kept so many warm. I heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, God bless you and keep